Hello, everyone. Welcome to another version of Cold Takes. Thank you for being here. If you are here, if you're watching this later, or if you're listening to this on Modern Manhood, thank you for being here. Um, yeah, there was a little bit of like technical thing that was going on beforehand, so I appreciate if you go click on the link before. Yeah, there's going to be another link. However, we're so happy to do this on another Thursday to do cold takes. My name is Herman. I'm here with Veronica and Samantha. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Today we're going to talk about fashion, and I brought my most fashionist shirt, as you can tell, just a straight up black shirt. I definitely feel like the most underdressed person in this group. So
I'm wearing a t-shirt. I'm also wearing a black shirt, so you know.
Oh, well, there we go.
I'm pretty sure I got this from a Lost and Found, so I don't know if that counts.
It's vintage.
Yeah, it counts.
It's thrifted.
It's thrifted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So it is that helps out for sure. So first of all, how are we doing? How's everyone doing today?
We're okay.
We're okay. Yeah. Tell me more. Tell me more, Samantha. Tell me about your day. Tell me about your week, your month.
Well, it's
How's it
interesting. I was actually thinking to myself, I was like, oh, what am I thinking about these days that I want to talk about, like in casual banter for this show? And I've been watching the show Community.
Yes.
And I had never watched
We all
it
love
before,
Community.
and it's amazing. And Abed is like the most amazing person ever. And
Yes.
it's been on my mind because there's so many different like interesting undertones within their interpersonal relationships, and they use obviously all of the tropes from different TV shows and things like that. But one of the things that I appreciated was just like this kind of like a implicit conversation about like neurodivergent people and like the brilliance and how awesome it is, and it just feels a little bit. I don't want to say ahead of its time because it was literally like 5 years ago, but it just feels nice to just see like a show that's so mainstream, kind of tackling mental health and in a way, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I love Community. I remember watching it when it was like airing like one by one. I remember first of all like not really was like into it until I got to like the paintball episode. And then I was like, I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Community. And like, Donald Glover was like a revelation in that show. And like, yeah, same thing with like Abed as well, too.
And their friendship is awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
A bromance for the ages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What made you start? Sorry to interrupt. What made you start watching Community, Samantha?
I've been going through different shows that are old that I've never seen. So this is like one of like 3 maybe. Like I finished watching like The Flash recently, and I'm just watching things that I've always wanted to watch that I've never watched. So
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what do you do you like Community, Veronica?
I have seen it. I didn't watch it all the way through because this is my problem. My attention span is not very long. So I pick up shows and I usually don't finish them. Like I usually stop because something else is like, ooh, shiny. And then you just like go start doing something else. I do this with books. I do it with like a bunch of stuff. So video games. I am like I only have the castle left in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, like their most recent, or I think it was one of their most recent ones. I'm playing it on the Wii U and I love it, but yeah, I only have like the castle and Ganondorf to beat, but I'm like, no, just apparently never gonna do that. So I've done like everything else in the game except the final. Yeah, so it's bad. My attention span is not good.
So what made you stop? Like why did you stop at like the last boss there?
Why do I stop? Well, also partially because I didn't want it to like be over, because it's always actually very sad to like finish a game like that. You're just like, well, I don't want to. It's almost the same with like books and shows that I like too, because when they're done, I'm like, oh, I don't want that to be done. So you just stop, and then it never has to like. You could just like stay in the space where it isn't finished. Don't know what that says about me, but let's not dive into it too much. Yeah, that's a thing.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. That's excellent. I for myself, like, I was telling Veronica that I today I met a dog that we might adopt. So very excited about that, and hopefully that all goes well. She seems like a very sweet dog. Excuse me. So it's like I've always wanted to have like a rescue dog for ourselves, and so when we bought our place, we're like, okay, let's just do this now, because we have a cat, and now we had. It took us a while to kind of like try to find a dog that can be good with cats and can be chill with my wife as well too, because she's not really like, she doesn't have like dog experience, so I want her to have like a good experience with dogs, and I hope that this will work really well. She seems like a sweetheart, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
So that might work out really well. So, but like culture wise, like I was thinking a lot about like the Met Gala. That's the reason why we're like, oh, let's just talk more fashion, because there's a lot of things that brought up this week. There is an election coming in Canada, like in Monday. Have you voted, Veronica? Have you advance voted?
I did not advance vote. I'm gonna go on Monday.
You're gonna go on Monday. You're gonna go on the day of.
Yep.
Yeah, I went to advance votes, and it was a hassle. I don't know why. It was like a ridiculous hassle. I'm always like, why is democracy so hard? Why is this? Why do people make this so damn hard? And I guess that's part of the thing too, right?
I don't know if compared to the American experience, it's that hard though. Like, I'm just thinking about like voter suppression and things that. Like,
I was just thinking gerrymandering and stuff like that.
We don't really have the same issues for sure.
You're in California, right? Didn't you have like an election just recently?
Yeah, Gavin Newsom just got not recalled yesterday. So we're all, or not yesterday, the day before yesterday, but they announced it yesterday. Yeah, so he's still our governor. I mean, he's not great, but obviously we didn't want the other dude, Elder, who's like,
he was like a radio talk show host or something like that.
Really? What?
I mean, it's just like you can't like every type of bad he is, and like I don't say that often about people, but it's just like in terms of if you're looking at just your political issues, the things you care about, the things that are just like about the just like the public well-being, he's just like against all of those things, and I'm just like, I don't. Like, why are you so bad? Like saying things like George Zimmerman is like the best and it's like I'm reluctant. I'm not necessarily saying that he's. I'm not in a position to comment on anybody's like actual moral compass. But he says so many bad things. Like, why are you saying that George Zimmerman or he said something about George Zimmerman being like should have been like more like applauded for what he did or like his and I'm like. But we've identified that he murdered somebody in blood who was like completely unarmed. So, like the point of that is just to bait. It's just to bait and to get racists on your side so that they'll vote for you. And it's like, in the name of what? In the name of money and fame? Like for what? Mm-hmm. Like what is that worth to you? What is? I don't. So. Anyway,
yeah.
Long story short.
Yikes.
Thankfully, we still have Gavin Newsom.
It was a big win too. It wasn't like almost like 70%, or was it 70%? I don't know what the end was, but like it was like a big substantial win.
Which I was like, good, because I can't believe that this was even in. But hey,
that
sounds stressful.
It cost $200 million to do that. It was like
what a waste!
Something like
what a waste of money
for him to just stay in office and for like what's gonna is like now that he's in office, like what's the like how are you gonna hold him accountable now?
Mm-hmm.
Like he like went through, we spent all this money, and now he's still here. So now it's kind of like I mean, whatever happens now, it's kind of like I mean, y'all try to get me out, you can't get me out. So like, what's the point of him like rising up? Like Gavin Newsom is not the type of politician that should not be held accountable. He's somebody whose feet you need to hold to the fire, obviously.
For sure.
So anyway.
Like any politician, it's fascinating how that was, and And it just seemed like a weird, like just like culture war kind of thing. And it sucks because it's like, yeah, you're right. It's like $200 million to do that election. And you're like, yeah, that money could have been spent so much better ways. And this is pointless. And, we're in Alberta. We're going to go through some pointless elections pretty quickly here as well, too. About like the equalization payment as well, too. And
You mean referendums?
The referendums, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go through that pretty soon.
I'm
it's like at the end of October.
So psyched.
So y'all voted for everything, or just like,
No.
Oh, okay.
We never have referendums. This is like
Barely,
straight up Kenny pandering to his base. There are people in our province who want to separate from Canada for like God knows why, right? Because they think that like
unfair.
they think that all the money from our province is going to other provinces, which like we do have like ways in which like to make life kind of similar for, everyone across Canada. We do have like taxes that go to the federal government and then are redistributed to other provinces that don't make as much money. Like our province is super oil rich, and that's like why everyone thinks it's like super unfair that so much of our money goes to support life like elsewhere in Canada to be like affordable and livable. But it's like, whatever, guys, we would not be better off. We would not be better off if we were like our own country. We'd be what? A landlocked country.
We'd be absorbed by the U.S. in 10 years.
Yeah, it's like this would not improve anything.
Sorry in advance.
Yeah,
that's what would happen.
It's very wild to me that anyone thinks that we'd be better off, like, and that there are people in our province that think we'd be better off with private healthcare or private schools when we have like very strong public systems that keep us, alive and educated. Like, it's pretty insane. I don't know. We have a strange. We live in a very weird place, Smith. Yeah. That's very strange.
And like this thing with elections right now in Canada, it is a new thing. It's just because we have a minority government, and he wanted to call an election so he can gain more seats, and all of a sudden, like, we have our federal election on the 28th, and we have our municipal elections at the end of October, the 18th, and that's when the two referendums at the same time. So it's like we don't vote that much, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, we're voting for everything now. Okay, cool. So like, I freaking hate this, and it's like we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we're like, oh yeah, let's go out and vote. This doesn't make sense, and whatever. It's a weird politics thing, and it's like,
super duper gonna backfire on Trudeau if he ends up not getting majority.
Well, we're just gonna end up in the same place. We're just gonna whatever. We're not. This is not the politics top. This is not
That's
the
true.
politics
That's
show.
Yeah. No more.
This is okay. Yeah, we decided this is not gonna talk about politics. I do want to say though that Cold Takes is before we even begin our major topic is because Cold Takes cannot be here without our support of our Inner Circle members. So make sure that if you love what we do, heart to you. Do it for now. There we go. Or like the Korean way, that's the way you do that.
The tiny finger hurt.
The tiny finger hurt. Yeah, that's good.
Samantha's like, what are you doing?
Korean dad. Yeah. Oh, you gotta look that up.
Apparently.
We can't do this without your support. We can't do Modern Manhood without your support. We can't do anything without your support. So we really appreciate your support. So shout out to everybody who's in the Inner Circle. Shout out to everybody commenting on the Inner Circle as well too. There's been a lot of really great discussions, and Veronica, you actually posted a topic that had like 40 comments now. One of our icebreakers. So I'm just like, that's fantastic, and I think that's a cool way of creating discussion. So shout outs to you. We love you. As well, this podcast cannot be done without the support of Alberta Podcast Network, which is locally grown, community supported. Make sure you check out any of the stuff that's going on at the Alberta Podcast Network. If you are in Alberta and you're like, hey, I want to learn more about politics and what's going on, check out the Dayberta podcast. They've been really good at just kind of breaking down what's going on, like in the horse race stuff. Like, hey, you want to know about your counselor? Hey, you want to know about who's running for your office? Like, go check out that website. They'll tell you all about who are in the races, and hopefully make a decision for you before Monday. So because this will come out on Sunday. So if you listen to it on Sunday, you will be able to listen to it and be like, who should I vote for? Maybe you vote for somebody else. So yeah, we were not going to tell you who to vote for. Might tell you who not vote for, but yes, we'll leave it at that.
Me.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who we get. It depends on who we get.
On the recall.
Yes, I think whoever joins Next Gen Men knows our political values very well. I think there's definitely we can say with pretty certainty about who we think we shouldn't vote for, but who you should vote for, I think that's up in the air. So that's what I think.
Fair.
Yeah. All right, but we're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about
fooled everyone listening.
Actually, you know what? This is a good segue because we are kind of this next topic is a little political. Because we're going to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Let's talk about her.
The Met Gala more broadly, and her dress for sure needs to feature.
Yes, Veronica, do you wanna set the stage?
Sure. So I only know what I know from the internet, as per usual. So I hope that I get all the details correct. But from what I do know, AOC was invited to the Met Gala. I don't think she had to pay the enormous ticket price, but she was just invited
she's a
attend.
Local member of government, so
exactly, yeah.
She gets invited to these things. Yes.
Yeah. And she had worked with a local designer on the dress. They had taken a dress that was already made and then added the slogan to the back of it that says "Tax the Rich." And so she wore that to the Met Gala, full of very, very rich people. And folks on the right and various sides of the center and left had lots to say about the dress. So I would turn to our resident American. Did you hear, or what did you hear? Yeah, what did you hear about the dress and the conversation? Right, look at it, like
who are we talking about?
Yeah. So what did you hear about it, or what did you see about it?
I mean, what I heard, I don't follow a lot of far right people, and I don't watch a lot of news on TV. So all of it's a lot of social media stuff and just reading articles and stuff. And so, a lot of people on the left, on the kind of further to the left than the center, but probably still in the middle, were very kind of oh, interesting that she should wear this dress at an event that costs $35,000 a ticket. And then people are like, well, she didn't pay for the ticket. And her, designer is an immigrant and she's Black and yay. And it's so, I mean, I heard a lot of different things. I think at the end of the day, everybody's right. I think that, AOC is now a politician. She is a congresswoman. She's going to play the game to stay in the game. That's just that's what it is, her using that platform or whatever to be woo, that's, whatever, tax the rich, doing, a Met Gala that was focused on American fashion. It's sort of on brand. It's definitely within theme. But yeah, it's also right that, it costs $35,000 a ticket. People that you're talking about taxing are actually, no. Because I was going to say the people you're talking about taxing are at the event with you. And it's some of them are. But the rich, when we're talking about ending poverty rich, those ones are not at the Met Gala.
No.
They're not at the Met Gala. They're not there. And that might be even Anna Wintour, I did posted something online that was saying something that said something to the effect of watching the Met Gala right now feels like you're watching the Capitol from one of the districts in the Hunger Games, or what's it called, factions?
Yep.
Yes.
And I was that's 100% how I felt when I saw Anna Wintour come to the mic and say whatever the hell she has to say about the Met Gala. And so, yeah, I think that everybody's kind of right about the criticism of, or everybody.
The framing of it, yeah.
Yeah, about the framing of it. I think all things are right. Nobody can really win because we live in a patriarchal, white supremacy. So it's kind of in a way, there's no, unless you just didn't do anything, which she could have done. She could have just attended and kicked it, and it would have been fine, and she would not have gotten criticism. But then how is like her opportunity to like voice her what protest does she have the right to do then? That's not just like within the walls of Congress. So
yeah, I was gonna say I'm like if you were invited to go to the Met Gala, and is her right to go, because again, she is a congresswoman in New York. Met Gala is in New York. She's invited to go in New York. Like that's her district, right? So of course she can come, right? There's a couple of things where I was a little bit like, this is not cool. Like when they say, oh, this is an immigrant designer. I'm like, yeah, she immigrated from Canada. She's not an immigrant. She's from Guelph, Ontario. She was not an immigrant in the sense that we think of as immigrants. So maybe she's using that phrase a little bit differently. And I was like, that's not cool. However, the idea that she, like, if she wants to make a statement, that's a good place to make a statement. I'm like, she's going to get the most amount of views on it. She will come up and actually create some sort of like statement around the people around her. And I'm like, you know what? Like, if she wasn't this like this political figure that has a lot of eyes on her and has like, oh no, like people scrutinize everything she says, then this wouldn't have even bat an eye. Like if somebody was like, I don't know, like let's pretend if like Dan Levy was wearing this dress, for example, I don't think anyone would bat an eye. Do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I was thinking of Cara Delevingne, which like that's like she had something different, which I also want to
We
should definitely talk about that.
Yeah,
right.
Let's talk about that one too.
Not
yeah.
having to do with like economics and like capital. So that I get what you mean. Like I do feel like an actor would have been praised. Dan Levy certainly would have been praised because Dan Levy can do zero wrong in most people's eyes, including mine. So I definitely think that would have gone over in a different way. I think if it had been another politician, though, that they would have gotten the same backlash.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, I agree.
Man or woman or any gender, for sure.
Yes. I'm just saying specifically with her because she just because she's so outspoken, and I think like honestly, to her credit, I think she's I think more politicians should actually be able to engage with the way that she does with young people and she does with her constituencies. And I think I really admire her for that she's just kind of like this person that will just say things out loud. And that comes with a lot of like backlash from people that think that, oh, because she's a woman and she speaks too much, she's blah, blah, blah. Like that it's in what she does. So because she's wearing it, it's because it's her. That's why there's so much of like the noise that just surrounds her with anything she does. Like I just remember like the video that she did when she was younger and she was like dancing, and some of these right wingers were like, look at her, she's not serious. Who's the one person that this is your congresswoman who's dancing? And everyone's like, she's just dancing. She's just
she's a human.
She's just a human being, exactly. Like so it's like anything she does, she just like it just refines like this rage within like some people. And at the same time, I'm like, maybe she uses that to her advantage. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Use the tax rich thing. Yeah, the only thing that honestly that bothered me is when she's like, this is an immigrant designer. I'm like that's, I mean, that's a little bit different. That was the only thing. But everything else, I was like, you know what? It's fine. Do it. Like, if you want to do it there. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
The more I think about it, the more I'm changing my mind. But anyway, I won't say any more about it. But,
no, go for it. What are you changing your mind about?
Well, because my train of thought was like, oh, like what if like Stacey Abrams had done that or Ayanna Pressley? Nobody ever would have said anything. But also Ayanna Pressley and Stacey Abrams would never do anything like that. You know what I mean? So, and that's the part where I'm like, okay, the performative aspect of this, you know, coupled with like, I don't know if you remember when she became like super homies with the chick from The Wing, Audrey Gelman or something like that. They were like homies and they were like dressing alike with the big glasses and like the hips are like kind of parting in the middle. And I was like, this is kind of interesting because this was before we found out that like there was like a little bit of classism going on there. But it was very like kind of hit, like very. It
was like Gen Z thing, yeah.
And it was like super like clicky, and I was like, that's not like that's not not in line with that. And that kind of gave me, and I think that this is kind of similar where it's like, okay, sure, but there's like a way where you're just performing. And it's like, it sucks that because it's you, we have to like hold you to a specific standard because you're a politician and not a performer. But I understand how people arrive there. But I also don't think that this is like, I mean, on the list of things that we have to worry about right now, this is just so low on the totem pole that it's just
totally.
Like, I was just like, I mean, yeah, but also, you know, we have bigger fish to fry. So anyway, yeah.
Veronica, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think some of the critiques that I saw were around, it was the dress that sparked these things, but it's not specific to the dress.
Sure.
So it was more just like critiques of AOC in general and the reaction that like many people who maybe just see that and are like, oh, that's really cool. She's like making a statement, and they already are like, I really like AOC and what she stands for and what she does and how outspoken she is, like what we've all kind of just said, where we just like see it and like immediately we're like, yes. But then it was like people taking that step back and being like, wait, politicians aren't your friends. Like politicians are establishment. They don't care about you. Like at the end of the day. And like this, like what you were saying earlier, Samantha, about like needing to hold people's feet to the fire always. It's like, we can't just be like, you wore a dress. You know, you made a statement one time, right? And so I see that stuff and I'm like, yeah, that also makes sense. And so I totally, what you're saying, Samantha, about like, everybody's right. I'm like, yeah, just kind of sitting over here being like, because I immediately saw that and was like, fuck yeah, you did. Yeah, you went to a place of millionaires and wore that fucking dress. I was like, yeah. But then, of course, yeah, that one step backwards, and someone else had made like a meme where they erased the tax the rich off her dress, and in red letters instead they put something like they're called detention centers now or something. Like, again, so highlighting that like the Democratic Party is not, you know, angels. They haven't saved us. They haven't changed the situation for migrant families at the border. They haven't changed the situation for Black Lives Matter, which incidentally we're protesting outside the MetGala.
Oh my God.
So, right. And so like someone else was saying, you know, AOC could have made a bigger statement had she gone out and been with the protesters.
Yep.
So there's like other, just things that I'm like, yeah, all this also makes sense. And I get that as well.
Yeah.
I was also thinking like how do you win? Like so I was listening to another podcast with a socialist, and he was talking about like this idea, this concept of like winning and like quote unquote winning. Like what is it about winning, and who wants to win, and why do we care about like actually winning as a socialist or whoever it is? And so and he's like, it's a really fraught idea because like it's like he compared it to being like this like indie band that all of a sudden goes mainstream, and then people just get really mad at you for going mainstream, but you're like, no, but this is what you want,
But
right?
that's what success means.
That's
right?
success is, right? But then everyone's like, no, you sold out. You're like, oh, okay, well this doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
So
like we want
kinda,
people like AOC in positions of power, and then we're mad when they're there as well, right? Like because we're like, you are a sellout. Like she is establishment now. She is part of the Democratic Party, which like we have all said is like not the best. Still, like yeah.
It's
Sorry,
interesting
Herman,
too.
for interrupting.
No. That's good. No, and it's interesting. You know, he also said that like, and I was like, oh, this really made me think about the context and the world that we live in. Especially in Canada, maybe it's different in the U.S. We kind of live in a very liberal world. Like the Democrats are liberals. Like Republicans are in a right-wing conservative area, but they work through a liberal way. Like this idea of democracy, this idea of the Constitution is very liberal. So they all like, in Canada specifically, like the Liberal Party is liberal. NDP is like sort of liberal-ish. They're like a small L liberals. The Conservatives are like right-wing liberals. And then you get like these fringe parties. So like in the context, we all are working through a liberal society. And how are we messaging our things, the way that we do things through this liberal landscape. It's like the idea of like, yeah, we still live in a society. We still live. So how does like so someone like Ocasio-Cortez create these kind of messages that inform, but also engage people in this kind of process, and also kind of say like a simple message like tax the rich is a very simple socialist message that's very provocative. And the left doesn't really have as many of those slogans. Like we have like paragraph long things that we have to explain about what kind of policies that but like defund the police is very easy to think. Well, Black Lives Matter is very easy. Tax the rich is very easy to kind of like get people to understand what you're trying to say. So, and I also think about like, if I was in her position, first of all, there wouldn't be as much blowback on someone like myself because I'm a guy. Second of all, it's like, what would I do if I was invited to the Met Gala and I wanted to make a statement, a socialist statement? And I'm also I'm like, I don't know, because I don't think it would have, I would never win. I could never win. You know what I mean? In that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you could ever win. I mean, I think like a naive person could say that, in the spirit of like American fashion, like using fashion to kind of call out the establishment is kind of like a punk rock move or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as long as it's AOC doing it or you doing it as a politician, that would never actually be deemed like a punk rock move per se,
Exactly.
So it's like, and I mean, right now everybody's kind of really rightfully super outraged and like thinking very, very hardcore about capitalism because of all these billionaires that are like popping up. So
flying to space.
Yeah, flying to space, and like, Kim K became a billionaire, Rihanna became a billionaire, so they're all around. So it's like, we're seeing like all of these. I mean, I don't think I still don't think we kind of really understand what $1 billion is, but I think that we're seeing a
lot of money.
Yeah, we're realizing that whatever that is not anywhere near our realm of existence, and it never will be. Like it's like a completely different dimension of existence on this planet, and I think like because of that, I think that the rose-colored glasses are coming off when it comes to people in the public eye, specifically politicians, definitely, and then now more and more, just like actors and everyone, when it comes to just like general like human issues. Like you guys exist on a different level of privilege. You can't really relate to what it is that we're going through. So yeah, so it's nice that you're doing that, but yeah, like people are dealing with like flooded subways and shit. So it's like,
totally. Veronica, what are your thoughts? I saw you writing some stuff down. I also very curious what you're writing down.
Yeah, no, I was thinking when you were saying like winning, I was like, what does that even mean? Because I was just thinking like, if winning means like everyone's happy, that's like impossible. Like that's not like even just like like people on the left being happy is impossible. Like making everyone on the left happy, not possible. So I don't know what winning would even really mean in this situation, but I don't know. I think coming back to what like Samantha had said, like I think everybody's right and this is just what it is. Something that kind of summed it up, that this is a tweet. Someone said it's AOC's dress is performative. Criticizing the dress is also performative. Everything is performative. We're all performing. Welcome to clown school. And I was like, oh.
Yes, totally.
So that was like, oh, yeah, what's up?
Like, I feel like that starts to get close to like some sort of universal truth. Like, I feel like that is closer than I think what we think we're doing like on Twitter and every day.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I definitely also have like tried to look at more of this stuff because I knew we were going to be talking about it. So I was like, oh, I better like know what happened and what's going on. And I just think like the other thing I was thinking, I was like, oh God, we created this monster. So I was like, celebrity culture, like being a thing is like the reason they have so much money. And I'm like, why are we so obsessed with famous people? That's such a like weird concept to me, even just like from the get. Like I've never been like a read the tabloids person ever. I've never cared. Like I didn't even know who the Kardashians were until like probably like 3 years ago. I just like, I don't know. Like it's never been like a thing for me personally. But then obviously it's been a huge thing for other people. And then I'm like, oh yeah, we did this. Like we made these beasts in a way. So I'm sort of like, oh yikes. Does that resonate, or am I just like, am I totally off?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that the question that you put in the icebreaker about self-worth, I'm just like, that hits a lot about that, right? That hits a lot about what society thinks is worthwhile. And what we think of as somebody who is successful and somebody who is doing life right. Those are our celebrities, and they can be anybody, right? And I mean, like, Greta Thunberg is as much as a celebrity as Jeff Bezos, as much as a celebrity as Beyonce, right? So they all have different type of ways of doing celebrity.
I guess so. I guess I'm thinking specifically about people who have like tabloid stories written about them, and the paparazzi follows them, you know?
Right.
But and I don't know if that happens to Greta. I know she definitely gets a lot of online hate. But I don't know.
She gets like these. She gets assholes following her.
Oh,
like
yeah.
In the Rebel, when she came to Edmonton, like those assholes, like the Rebel media people started like following her around. I was like, these fucking assholes.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a different story. Sorry, Samantha, you were going to say something.
No, I mean, I was just kind of like shaking my head at people following. I mean, probably at the time, a 17-year-old like walking around, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it's fucking stupid.
Very creepy. Very
not okay.
Not
okay. Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I think that kind of boils down to like a lot of the messaging, right? It's like messaging it's part of the capitalist machine. It's like, you know, you use kind of images, right, to sell and sell and sell. And so with that, then ideals get kind of conjured, and, you know, you've got people that are like working out 3 times a day to like make sure that they fit those ideals so that they can be in our favorite movies and whatever else, you know? And I feel like, yeah, that creates like I think probably admiration and things are like inspiration are definitely very like human, like naturally human things to feel. But I think that celebrity culture is 100% just like advertising, basically. So yeah, definitely.
I think so.
It's a pure. I feel like it's a purely manipulative result.
It's very strange.
Yeah. Like I'm very susceptible to it. Let me just say.
Like following the stuff? And
oh my God.
Oh really?
Like all advertisements on Instagram, if you're wondering like how could anybody like fall for anything like that, I'm the one who falls for that. Like, oh my goodness.
Sometimes that happens to me. Sometimes that happens to me too.
100%. Like my brain is like, oh, this is cute. This is, you know, it's fun.
It's cute.
Just like not understanding until way later that I was manipulated into most of the things that maybe not most of the things, but a good amount of the things that I'm like, I should get this. It's just like because I saw it like 75 times on Instagram.
Right. No, I think we're all susceptible to that.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I definitely have.
But I think that, you know, celebrities and people are marketed as products. So it's like, you know, you might not necessarily need like a Britney Spears or a Megan Good in your house, but you think you do. And then that's how I mean, you know, to kind of like go back full circle to kind of like how we were talking like bodies and things like that. You know, like they're being advertised as a product through these movies, like finding out all the different contracts that I feel like I'm veering now, which is what I normally do, but
that's fine. Veer.
That's okay.
We're here for the ride.
Go for it.
But I think a lot. So like, I'm obsessed with Marvel movies, as I may have mentioned here, MCU all the way. And like, I found out that, you know, Marvel had contracts with the military. I think I did. I talked about this here, and I was like, I don't know why I should be surprised by that, but I was like, damn, like, what? Like people, like it's wild because I'm like, the reason why I watched the MCU was because these people are not supposed to exist. That's not supposed to exist. It's literally supposed to be in a separate dimension, it's not even a multiverse, like a completely separate multiverse that we have no access to. Meanwhile, we're like, oh no, you can't be Iron Man, but you can still be a soldier and just like go and foster wars around the world and everything, and just like create like these ridiculous fodder for all these like wildly wealthy and amoral, like, weapons companies. So it's like, I think that was one of the things where I was like, this is like a product. All of it is a product. And like, I understand that I'm susceptible and I'm going to keep watching it because I love audiovisual stuff and not everybody is doing that. But for the most part, anything that you can see on AMC theater is likely a product of some sort with some kind of machine behind it. So, yeah.
Totally. Have you heard about the Top Gun thing?
No.
Like how Top Gun, the movie. So that movie produced was basically the reason why there's so many people wanted to recruit for the Army for the Navy, because of that movie, and the Navy used Top Gun as like a recruiting tool a lot of the times. And it's interesting because with Marvel specifically, I know this is definitely a tangent, but I know specifically with Marvel, they definitely have like those military contracts. I mean, the NFL has military contracts too. At the same time, it's like it's an art product, right? So it's like not just like sports. Sports, I mean, it's not artistic, but because Marvel is arts, like they are trying to like fit into these kind of like anti-military stances. And sometimes, like I'm just thinking of, I don't know if you're following like the What If stuff on Marvel TV, on Disney Plus. The last one was very like anti-military, and I was like, this is interesting because I knew about the whole
for them.
Yeah, it was and it was like basically a what if Killmonger saved Tony Stark,
right
before he got injured by that missile or whatever it was, before he became Iron Man. So like, what if Killmonger actually saved him and they became friends? And what would Killmonger do? And it was very much like this military institution. I was like, that's like such a cool idea. And I'm just like, I'm like, and also became this very scary concept of like, oh my God, what would happen if that was the case? And it was like, yeah, that's really cool. So I'm just like very curious about how they deal with that stuff too, right? Yeah. And even with like the stuff with Black Panther was very like like isolationist, and this idea of like being isolationist versus being not isolationist, and it's like that's very kind of like anti-American sentiment too. So I'm just like, yeah.
They've evolved. I feel like they're kind of trying to evolve and like trying to be on the right side of history, and I appreciate that.
So I mean, that's so I'm just like Marvel gets a lot of shit, and sometimes they deserve it. Yes. But like, I appreciate what they do sometimes, and I think that's like, and I'm like they're pushing a little bit. Okay, how about this for a segue? Speaking of pushing things, can we talk about the Cara Levine?
Yes. Hey, that's a great segue. Wow, Herman, all the double entendres.
Well done.
Thank you.
Should I set us up again?
Yeah, set us up.
Okay. Well, Cara Delevingne showed up to the Met Gala in this interesting, I don't know, it looked like a tank top / bulletproof vest. I don't even know.
I think it was a bulletproof vest.
Which is also interesting in and of
also,
itself.
Like, why would you do this? But anyway.
I mean, maybe she thinks the message is controversial enough to warrant violence. I don't know, but I was interested by this one. Her white bulletproof vest thing said, "Peg the patriarchy," in red letters. It seems white clothing with red letters is the chosen form to make statements in the Met Gala this year.
I guess.
Symbolic of
yes. And same as last time. I would actually love to hear again from Samantha first, because you had thoughts on this one for sure.
Well, it was one of those things where I was like, whenever I see patriarchy anywhere, I'm like, because usually people are like saying like, fuck the patriarchy, right? But in this case, I'm like, okay, peg the patriarchy. Okay, let's think about pegging. Let's think about like how much that's like shamed as like a sexual practice. Let's think about in general how you're talking about how you want to essentially, like, I'm presuming that this is intended to mean down with the patriarchy in some form. And she's somebody who I believe identifies as like queer of some kind. Like, I don't think that she's like binary. So I'm like, okay, you're essentially like using a term that basically the way that it's used is basically intended to be negative toward the patriarchy, but then that also means that pegging is bad. So then it means it's like, what are you saying to like men who are like down to get pegged by their people? Like what? I mean, it just seems a little bit. It doesn't seem a little bit performative. It seems just performative, and I feel like if you stop to think about it for like 3 minutes, it just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work. And then you have the bulletproof vest, which is like, what are you trying to say here? That you're in danger? Is that what the bulletproof vest is supposed to like signify? Because maybe you are in certain ways, but the way that she's performing this or like kind of donning this is like, it just doesn't align. And I don't know. I felt like it was a misfire a lot, but I also felt like it was a misfire in particular because everybody was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Oh my God. Patriarchy. And it was like, absolutely not what you think it is. Like, just stop for like literally 4 Google searches, and this is like absolutely not it. So, you know,
yeah. Agreed with this. Veronica, what do you think?
Well, I was totally one of those people who immediately saw it and was like, yeah! And then I thought about it also for more than 20 seconds and was like, oh no. So I also apologize to everyone listening to the audio because I know that's going to be really loud, what we just did. My bad. But I did more digging and I found this Vice article. And basically, here we go. The artist behind Peg the Patriarchy wishes Cara Delevingne gave her credit. So Luna...
I also heard about this.
Yeah, Luna Matatas, a queer woman of color who runs a small business, has owned the trademark that Delevingne wore to the Met Gala since 2015. What else does it say here? It says she found out online, everyone was tagging her in it, and she was like, oh shit, my art, not credited, right? What did she say here? And the woman with the trademark has said, oh, sorry, I lost the part that I wanted. So she explains her, like, why, besides being an alliteration, instead of, like, smash the patriarchy or fuck the patriarchy, it's an alliteration, but she says part of the reason why she like, stands by the statement is it's about women's empowerment, equality, gender equality. It's a bit like stick it to the man. Oh no, that was Delevingne who said that. Sorry, I really should have grabbed my like spot better in this. Oh, here we go. Sorry, Matata said, okay, so she says Peg the Patriarchy is about subversion, not about an anal sex act, and not about men. It's a metaphor for subverting the system that requires subservience within a gender binary. So it's like there are probably more ways to interpret it, but of course then, yeah, there's just layers to this, right? Like layers with things being not credited, layers with things being maybe understood in different ways by different people, right? Because if we do look at, like, Peg the Patriarchy is just like, fuck the patriarchy, then everyone's going to be like, sweet. But if we look at it as like, oh yeah, like what you were just saying, Samantha, with like, well, what does this say about pegging? And what does this say about, like, people who have different like preferences, like what does it say about these things? And then to look at it again and say, okay, well, this is how it was intended by the artist who came up with it, and now it's not being credited. So now we look at it again from another angle, I guess, is where,
yeah. That's tough. Like, that's really tough. Like, those are tough looks all around for Cara Delevingne. Like, I think it's one of those things that I'm glad that we're kind of like focusing and then criticizing it and kind of looking at this through a critical lens. Because I don't think before, like if this, like I'm just thinking if this happened in, let's say 2010, you know, in the middle of the Obama era kind of thing, maybe 2013, like I think people would be like, bravo. And that's about it. I don't think there would be kind of, or if there would be some critiques of it, it would be really low. But I think that like, I'm happy that there's a little bit of like that critique around these phrases and stuff like that, because it is very kink shamey, and it is very especially with the LGBTQ community. I'm just like this is just like we're really just not acknowledging what their life is like, and just pretending that this is like some sort of bad thing. And yeah, and so I'm happy that there is this kind of like critique, and even including with the AOC, but at the same time to actually think about these things critically and not just accept them as this like bravo kind of thing. So I'm happy with that. And it also reminds me of like I saw this like one person that was like it was this right winger that has like this T-shirt on, and the back it said like, if you burn my flag, I'll eat your ass. And people were like,
Who?
oh.
Sounds good, dude.
Sounds like an invitation.
Like,
Oh my
who
God.
doesn't like look at that and like spend more than like 2 minutes thinking about it and being like,
It's a
should I
pandemic.
put this on a
Everybody's
shirt?
horny. That is literally not a bad thing for so many people. But okay,
I know.
cool.
That is really, really funny.
That's so funny. It's so funny.
I'll eat your
cool.
ass. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's always threatening me with a good time. Like, come on.
Come on, bro.
Come on, everyone.
Oh my god, I'm dying.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to our next topic. Because this is something that we wanted to talk about in regards to this. Like, we wanted to talk about men's fashion, and so there was a lot of cool things that happened in regards. This is not even just the Met Gala, but just like there's a lot of like cool fashion that's going on with men. We talked a little bit about Dan Levy. Dan Levy actually wore something really cool for the Met Gala, and I love what Dan Levy wears in general. He's just a really amazing dresser. He's a really cool person in general. But he wore this attire that's like all blue. He had like little like puffy things that kind of look like the world, and it looked like there was like two men that were like making out, but it was like a map. I'm just looking at it right now.
Yeah.
It's
People should just look at the image because it's hard to describe.
Yeah, it's hard to describe.
People Google
This
it.
is audio. Just Google it. He looks very dashing. Just a dashing man.
He always looks dashing.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like compared to like people like Timothy Chalamet, who wore this very kind of like not provocative, but it was very like a stylish attire. But then he wore like Converse shoes at the bottom, and I was like, "Oh, Timothy, what are you doing?" But it's
You would get red for filth on RuPaul's Drag Race for having the wrong kind of shoes in your outfit. Not be good.
No good.
Not be
good. Yeah. So my big question here, and I also want to talk about what Sarah sent us over, this idea of the refashioning masculinity project that disrupt gender through fashion. So cool. Yeah, very, very cool. Actually, do you want to talk about that first, and then we can talk about kind of the men's fashion idea? Samantha, what are your thoughts on refashioning masculinity?
Yeah, so sure. So I think this is like a fashion show that they did where they like talked to various men about like their experiences with fashion. And I don't remember exactly where this took place, but basically there were like a lot of different types of people, but they all had like a connection to fashion. And I think I didn't watch like the video, but I read all of the testimonials for it because it was like really nice to kind of see everybody. Just talk really like deeply about about like their experiences, and it was interesting actually to see people's influences, right? So some folks that were kind of more tailored, like suit types, were talking about kind of like having their shoes polished from like and learning from their uncle or their father, or like their mom used to dress really well or whatever. And then you had other people who were like, I was really influenced by the fact that I didn't have those experiences, right? And was like and I just wanted to explore. Like somebody was talking about how they would like to wear makeup, but they don't follow kind of guys. They just like experiment and do what feels right. Then you have people who are talking about, how different athletes kind of stepping out of the dressing norms and stuff for men kind of inspired them to step outside of their comfort zone and be a little bit more daring. So it's a very, very cool thing. It's called refashioning masculinity. I know. I mean, I'll definitely post it. I think I might have posted it, but if I did not post it, I will post it on my Twitter. And very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah. So Sarah asked a good question here. She says, fashion itself can be politicized. We talked about this a bit. And we also we mentioned a bit before about Harry Styles' Vogue cover. But what do you think it can be used to challenge the status quo or add to a movement? What do you think about not even just tax the rich or peg the patriarchy, but in general, like men's dress? How do you feel about challenging the status quo? Because we talked about a little bit about that in the inner circle. Veronica, what do you think?
Oh, okay. I was gonna give Samantha the floor again, so we could keep our same order going. But
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No. That's okay.
We'll switch up. Yeah.
It's okay. I this project, this refashioning masculinity is beautiful, and also reminds me of just Queer Eye, and just remembering watching a lot of men say that they did have style influences, or they had certain things they wanted to go for or express their fashion, and then a bunch who just said I've never thought about it, and they've never really given a lot of really any thought to how they could say something about themselves with the way that they dress and stuff. So a really interesting, if there's a bell curve where there's men in fashion, I swear it's skewed one way or the other, at least from what I've seen, maybe just in my bubble in Alberta. I feel more guys are on the side of never having really thought much about their clothes than they are on the side of people who are very intentional about their clothes and think about them a lot and have these stories connected to things, and or want to be very green in their clothing choices, so trying to thrift or trying to do other things so anyway, that's just a kind of a side tangent thing. But to answer Sarah's question more directly, I feel a little Bambi in this conversation because I literally don't know much about fashion at all. As we already discussed, legit though.
You dress great. What are you talking about? You know most stuff about that.
Dude, no, I don't. Thank you. As I pull out my took it from a lost and found bin sweater.
You picked it out of the lost and found.
Exactly.
That's still true. That's still true. But it would okay. So I to explain it better, I guess I don't feel a lot of my choices around clothes have been super informed by I know this is a trend and I know what the trend is called or something, you know what I mean? Or even I know what this style is and I know what it's called and I know who I just don't have very much depth in my knowledge, which is kind of embarrassing because my aunt is the creative director of Western Canada Fashion Week and I'm what's that?
Very cool.
Sometimes I go to the shows don't know what's happening. They're this person designed this and this. I'm very cool. Don't know. Don't know anything. But I just have no idea what is up in fashion. But so I do think though that absolutely that it can be used to challenge the status quo, and I think clothing has always been political. Even if we just think about what is happening to people in Quebec with religious clothing now that they're banned from wearing them if they work in a public a position of public office or even just public, what is it, they're an employee of the government, right? Or anyone who works in
public sector work.
Public sector, that's the word.
Yeah, public.
Yeah, so now women can't wear hijabs and work as a teacher. And that's total trash, right? And so clothing is political whether we want it to be or not. Okay. Right? So there's ways that it people have turned it into have weaponized clothing and stuff. So yeah, absolutely, it's political. And I think we can push things, we can change things. I think people do it all the time. I think people make statements all the time. Even the choice to thrift instead of to try to to not be buying new clothes is a political thing, right? So that's my very not beautiful answer to that question. Samantha, over to you.
I think I tend to agree with what you're saying, that clothing can be viewed as political in a lot of ways, and I think that because we're judgmental creatures, we identify people by what we see on them. I think that clothing in a way serves as a form of ID card in a lot of ways. I remember one time I was I used to have this client who was this kind of older, really beautiful kind of wealthy white lady. And one time we were like having our little lesson, and she was like, yeah, you know, it was interesting. Like I went to France, and I'm from France, and she was like, oh, like it was right after they had banned the hijab in France. And she was like, yeah, you know, it was interesting. You go there now, you can't tell who's who. You know, like people are just walking amongst everyone else without their, you know, their thing. I mean, she didn't say exactly those words, but that's what she was saying. And I was like, it was weird because I was in the situation and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say in this situation. It's like, I'm on a lesson with my client. She's telling me something that's like obviously racist, but obviously she doesn't think it's racist because in her mind, it's like, well, you used to be able to tell them apart from like the normal people walking around, quote unquote. You know what I mean? I mean, that's essentially what she was saying. And now it's like, oh, now they're just walking among us. These like Muslim women that usually are covered. Like, what am I supposed to say? You know? And it's like weird because she's telling me that. And obviously she's telling me that because she thinks it's going to be falling on, I guess I must say something about me and my agreeable nature, but it's like falling on agreeable ears. Because obviously we're not going to say something like that to just anybody, you know? And so, I don't know, I think about like the notion of clothing and how it's just the way that we, like people are out there being themselves and everybody has something to say about it. You know what I mean? Like a person wearing a burqa, she's doing it because that's her face, she's doing her thing. Somebody is going to come and say something about that. That's none of your business, technically. It's really not, you know? Men wearing skirts, we like had these like threads that we were kind of like talking about. Yeah. Men wearing skirts. Russell Westbrook is always trying to wear a kilt. I'm here for it. You know what I mean? Like that is an expression. It's an expression. It's coming from someone from within, an opportunity for them to just like be themselves in a way that like kind of makes them happy. And that's all it should ever be, you know, but that's not the world that we have come to live in. And so now it's kind of like this cover, like this book cover that we kind of judge people on. And yeah, I think we can flip it because of that reason exactly, right? But like if you just wear whatever the fuck you want, then it's not like, you know, yeah. Yet you have to get to know somebody to like get to know them, which would be nice. So yeah. Yeah,
for sure. I agree with that idea of like expressing yourself in a way that is authentic to you, and also like some it's interesting because we show off ourselves in our clothes and we also hide in our clothes. There's a lot of people who just wear hats and they just like, because they're hiding, they want to hide themselves, or they want like I hear a lot of like young boys who just wear hats because they just want to hide themselves and they think that's a good way to just kind of hide, or they wear their hoodies up because that's just a way of like hiding themselves. And but also obviously we do show off in our clothes as well. I also think a lot about like just our backgrounds in clothes. I follow this writer. Her name is Chantrell P. Lewis. She wrote this book called Dandelion, called about the Black Dandy and Street Style. And she basically, it's kind of like this photo book of like of Black people taking back this idea of dandyism, and how, she makes a point being like, dandy culture, I'll put it in the chat here. Dandy culture is it comes from a Black heritage and Black roots. And so like the pictures on it are just like amazing. And I'm just like, I feel very like a little bit of like not envious, but just like, wow, I wish like that I could just kind of wear stuff like that and just make it look cool and make it feel natural and authentic. But I'm just like, but that's still not me. If I wear that stuff, that's still not who I am. So I'm trying to like think about my own ethnicity and think about my own heritage and being like, how do I wear something that is considered more for myself, like considered more Latino, right? And so I think it was a few years back, I asked my mom, I'm just like, hey mom, can you like, she was going to Chile. And I was like, and she asked me, she's like, what do you want back from Chile? And I was like, well, first of all, give me some candy because I love their candy. Second of all, yeah, give me like a Chilean poncho, like the ones that Wassos wear, like the farmers wear, and it's a very popular kind of dress when you wear on the 18th, which is our national holiday. And she gave me this look. She's like, really? He's like, yeah, I kind of want to like have it so I can wear it and also kind of express it in a way that is more authentically me. more authentic to my own heritage. And I still feel like weird wearing it because it's like I'm trying something on but I'm also like, yeah, it's still kind of cool because it's me. So at the same time, I'm like, I feel happy wearing it, and it's kind of an expression of who I am and what I'm about. And like I grew out my hair this year because I'm also like, so I've never grown out my hair before. I always cut it short, and then I told my wife, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna grow it out this year. She's like, really? That's weird. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna try it. I just want to see how it looks, and it's just because I'm just like, I don't want to make it into this political thing, but at the same time, I'm like, I just want to see what my natural hair looks, and I just want to see how like that looks in a way where it's like normal, and not have to like put a bunch of stuff in it, because I just want to see how natural it is, and I felt very like authentic with that. So yeah, it's like a really interesting how we show off and hide with the things that we wear, the things that we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
totally. And even just talking about like cultural, like that just leads me to like immediately think of appropriation too. So then I'm just
absolutely.
like, oh, how is clothing? Now the question is like not how is clothing political, but I'm like, how is it not? Like between all the things of like how it's made, like let's talk about sweatshops. Yeah. Like let's talk about like the horrible, like how bad the textile industry is for the planet. And then like we're talking about, okay, that's how it's made. There's more to it than that. There's more things we could talk about. But then there's the what it is and like the ideas themselves that go into the clothing, and like how much of that is appropriation, how much of that is, not crediting people with ideas or whatever it is. And you're just like, okay, there are many, many layers. And then if we talked about like patriarchy and what the men's lib thread that you talked about that I started reading was like men being like, I am jealous of women's fashion because they get so many colors and they get so many fun things, and relates back to what you're talking about with like dandelion and like all the beautiful colors and the other things. And it's like, like how do men get to like claim like their selfhood under patriarchy too? Like, cause so then there's so many layers, you guys. We're not going to be able to talk about it in like the amount of time that we have, but there's a lot.
We got a few minutes here. Just talk to me about that, Samantha. What are your thoughts as well?
Well, I think that men are encouraged to be stoic in their clothing the way that they're encouraged to be stoic in their emotion, and they're that being. I mean, I don't want to say. Well, I hate when I say you don't want to say it, but you're gonna say it anyway. Like I'm saying drab, for lack of a better word, but it's like seeing a man in drab clothing is soothing to the soul because it's grounding. It's what you expect to see, in terms of like if you're thinking about like a patriarchal, like all American on our end. Society, when you're thinking about somebody who's like a provider who has his shit together, that person's going to be probably in a suit, right? At least in decades past. Now, that can look a lot of different types of ways, but like if you see somebody in a skirt, that there are very, very, very specific things that you're going to go to. If you see a man in a suit, he could be doing anything with his life, right? But if you see somebody in a skirt, you're like, okay, it's either somebody who's like super high fashion. It's, a number of stereotypes, right? So I think that for me, it's like all about creative expression. Like I had this thought, which was maybe slightly toxic. You guys can tell me. I was like, Samantha, like, would you date somebody who wears skirts? Like, would you? Like when I did a man who wore skirts or like a masculine person who wore skirts. And I think that like the answer is yes, but I think that the first thing that gave me pause when I was like, oh, would I? Was simply having to explain to like the people in my life like why I'm dating somebody who wears skirts and why is he wearing skirts. You know what I'm saying? Like that point of like having to defend like your freedom, basically. So yeah, I think it's all about just letting the judgment go and letting people do what they want to do and whatever. But I think we're far from that, I think like to the point, like my thing is, it's like, I used to think that, equality and equity and just like understanding and stuff for humans was inevitable. Like we were going to obviously progress there at some point, somehow, some way, because that's just like the natural projection. And it is absolutely 100% not Like we're always going to want to regress, or at least the powers that be are always going to try to make us go that way. So it's really like an intentional thing to challenge that and resist that at every turn. So
yeah. For sure. Go ahead, Veronica.
I was gonna say I bought a friend of mine. Her son is 5. I bought them a storybook called The Boy in the Dress, and she was pumped. Her partner was not, but I was like, too bad. But the way she explained it to him, it was funny because her partner was like, "Oh my God, he's not gonna wear dresses. Like that's not gonna happen," and she was like, "This isn't about him wearing or not wearing dresses. This is about like." He can do whatever the fuck he wants, to be clear. But it's more about like, I don't want to raise a bully. Like, I don't want him to look at other people and think that they have to behave a certain way either. Right. He can make his own choices, you know, but I also just don't want to raise a bully. So this is a staple in his library now. We're going to read about it. We're going to talk about it. And like, I think, it's nice. And I think to your point, Samantha, it's like, we're nowhere near where we need to be. Like not even close, but I do see like tiny things like that, like just, you know, stores, like someone wrote that book, stores are carrying that book, people are buying that book. So like just those little things, I'm still like very grateful for the steps we have been taking and the way that I do think like, I know Herman, you have big thoughts about like, is it subversive? Is it not for like men to wear skirts or dresses if they're like, you know, in positions of power or whatever it is, like there's no like stakes for them or it's like, it's different. I don't know. I think it is important for like straight men or straight and cis men, like to be like showing solidarity in different ways and trying different things and pushing boundaries too. Like, I think that's good. Yeah.
I think my thought around that specifically somebody like Russell Westbrook. And I'm just thinking of like, Russell is somebody who is one of the few people that's like, I don't give a F what anyone thinks. I'm going to dress whatever it is. And the good thing about him is that he is this person who pushes the boundaries and allows other people to push the boundaries. So in that part, I respect. Is it brave for Russell Westbrook now in 2021 to be wearing that? I would wager maybe it's less risky than somebody who is not as famous, not as popular to be wearing that address, for example. If we're using that. So that was my kind of like thought. And I think this idea of like fear is like when I look at this thread about like what's this called, the lack of diversity in men's fashion, and I read this and I'm just like there's a sense of like fear and shame that regards to this conversation, because it seems like there's a lot of guys in that specific thread, and there's a lot of guys out there in the world that are yearning for more diversity in the way that they wear things, but they're scared of what they're going to be called as a man specifically. And those are the ideas of like, how do you dress in a way that is conforming to this ideal of masculinity? And so once we stretch this idea of masculinity in a form that can include many types of dresses, that can include the flannel, people who wear flannel, people who wear dresses, right? Like, and those two people can be called a man without having to justify it in any way, right? So, and I think that's the important part of it. Especially when in regards to like fashion and the way that we think about, you know, even things like wearing pink or wearing dresses and stuff like that. And I think, you know, like men have been wearing dresses for centuries. Like it's been a thing. It's been a staple of our for a while. It's just, there's been these forces, like you mentioned, Veronica, that have told us to say, you know what, wearing a dress is for women. And there's never been kind of an idea that's cemented that, except for this idea of industrialization and this idea of like working and this idea of like being at home, and who stays at home, it's the women, and who's going to work, it's the men, and you wear men, you have to wear this. And then there's also this subversion as well too, even before then, with like the suffragette movement of women wearing pants. And like that was a big subversion as well too, like, oh, you can't wear this and wear that. And so I mean, it still happens now with like, we talked about the Olympic thing about wearing skirts and wearing shorts and like what is quote unquote appropriate. So it's like there's a lot of fear in this conversation in regards to fashion. And I think the idea of like Russell Westbrook and Kid Cudi that are, stretching inside, even things like, I'm just thinking of like people like Dennis Rodman, he would wear a dress in occasion and just have no problems about it. Like Kurt Cobain would wear a dress on stage. Like those are the things that those people that I'm thinking of, I'm just like, yeah, they tried their best to do that. And I hope that you don't need to be a Kurt Cobain, a Kid Cudi, or a Russell Westbrook to just wear a dress. Because I think that's important too. So I don't know. I'm just thinking of the idea of fear is basically just kind of underlining that thought,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that one thing that's coming to mind about Russell Westbrook specifically is that where, thinking about Dennis Rodman, other basketball player, obviously legendary, all that, where he was kind of like very overt about, I mean, I'm not sure that he was ever like talking about gender this and gender that, but he was very much talking about freedom. He was very kind of like out there with even how sexual or free he was. Like that was very much like part of it. And I feel like with Russell Westbrook, he's like, I'm just trying to look fly in these clothes, and I don't have any limits as to what that looks like. Same with someone like Dwayne Wade, who might not necessarily, who actually I think also wears kilts and like wears different types of like dress looking things. It's like no one is looking at them and being like, oh, are they maybe kind of gay, or are they maybe kind of bi or queer? They're just like, oh, they're just having a good time. And I feel like if we like people wearing a kilt, if they're not like a 6'4", 6'3", like professional basketball player in the NBA, does not give anybody the right to then start to talk about what their gender or their sexuality is, And I feel like with Russell Westbrook or Dwayne Wade or even David Beckham, that was mentioned in the refining masculinity thing. It's like, okay, they're athletes. We already know they're hyper masculine, so it's cool. It's fashion. And it's like, well,
they can do whatever they want.
Exactly. And it's like, well, there are other people who might not be kind of like this like archetype or whatever of masculinity. They're also going to be doing that and might also just be doing it for style, not necessarily having to question anything like that. So I think it's also kind of important to take a look at that and see why certain people, when they do it, we're like, oh, this is so cool. Like he's turning things on its head and being manly nonetheless. And when other people do it, it's like, oh, is he gay? Like, do we need to?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say is history, because I think a lot of things about fashion, like the history of fashion and the who used to wear what, similar to how we were talking about Pinky and the Blue Boy or whatever. For like in Modern Manhood, it's like, we talk about like colors or like heels and like a lot of things having to do with women's fashion today originally were men's things, right? Like heels were men's things. Even skirts, like everybody was wearing stuff without having the divider between the legs or whatever until, whatever happens. I was actually reading about this today. Excuse me, I can't really remember right now. But, and I mean, a lot of it had to do with like class and what people had access to, the different events that they got to go to. It was like a practical thing. So I think like, we have all of these ideas about the way that we've come to gender things and everything like that now, but we're making shit up as we go. None of this is real. Like none of it is real.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
totally.
Dudes want to start wearing skirts now. Women are like, I remember everybody was like, oh my goodness, Hillary never wears pants. Which I kid you not, I never noticed until somebody mentioned that, like during her campaign. And it's like, oh, it's 2016, but we're worried about whether or not she's wearing pants. And it's like, what are we, so we're making it up. Like none of it is real. Like do what you want, but also let people do what they want. Stop with the shaming. For the love of
yes,
God, absolutely. I mean, that's really what it is to me, but yeah.
Although in the case of appropriation, maybe don't do whatever you want. Is my one like thing where I'm like, ooh. But otherwise, probably yeah. Which is why it is interesting and important, I think, for people to care about where their clothes come from, what what does it mean. And this is where I'm calling myself out, because I haven't always thought about my clothes that deeply, as I already told you. But at least now, like, yes, certainly as an adult, have been more aware of things like, oh yeah, like appropriation, you totally see it and you're like, oh, I understand that, right? Like that's very clear. Like when people wear headdresses to Coachella, you're like, oh God, right? Like people get like, that's not okay. But then, yeah, even just hopefully people feel free to like do what they want, but are aware and trying to be conscious about like, yeah, where their clothes come from and what they mean to different people and stuff like that too.
Totally agree. I think this is a good place to end off. So any final thoughts before we end the broadcast?
I don't know. I'm just really happy to see y'all again, because I feel like it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Which is nice. And Samantha's joining me next week on Instagram Live, so I'm going to see you like again very soon, which is nice.
I owe you a headshot.
Yes.
So
sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, for anyone who follows us, that is going to be happening next Thursday, actually similar time. So next Thursday evening at 7:30 Mountain Time. So people tune in on Instagram there if you want to catch up with us a little bit more.
Where can people find you on Instagram, BT Dubs?
Oh, this is just at Next Gen Men.
At Next Gen Men. Perfect. Go check us out at Next Gen Men on Instagram and on Twitter. And you can you'll find this recording on YouTube as well too. If you can subscribe, smash that subscribe button. I can't believe I'm saying those words.
Please don't.
Smash the subscribe button.
Really bad joke, but I'll let it. I'll let it.
So yeah, no, thanks for tuning in and thanks for listening. If you're on the Modern Manhood feed, thanks so much. And you will hear a new episode hopefully by the end of this month. So we're very excited to bring that episode to you. It's going to be all about sex education. So I'm very excited to bring that as well. Yeah, and then we're pretty much on our last few episodes here of the season of Modern Manhood. We're ending it off in November. And then we'll see what happens after that. And then hopefully Samantha will bring some masculinity as well too through her podcast. So that will be awesome as well. So thanks again for tuning into Cold Takes. And have a wonderful week. Whatever it is, make sure you don't vote for conservatives. That's all I gotta say.
If you see them with a skirt, let them know that you appreciate it, or just leave them alone. Let them live their life.
Let people live their life. Yes.
Keep going. Keep walking about your day. Yeah.
Also,
bye, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.